You clumsy fool! Look what you've done to this event!
He was supposed to ignore her, just another maid, another mistake. But the moment he saw the tears on her face and the blood on her hand, every rule he lived by broke.
By midnight, this hotel will have a new owner.
The Grand Regency Hotel glittered like Atlanta's crown jewel, its chandeliers burning day and night, so no one forgot who truly owned the skyline. Lena Hayes adjusted the stiff collar of her maid uniform and pressed a palm against the small of her back. 5 months pregnant, and still working 12-hour shifts. The tips kept the rent paid, the insurance kept her baby safe. Losing this job wasn't an option. Her reflection in the staff entrance glass showed a young black African woman with eyes too tired for her age. She smiled anyway, the practiced smile that kept guests comfortable and supervisors off her back, and whispered, "One more week, just one more paycheck." 40 floors above her, Kwon Ji-hoon, known in the underworld as the Kingmaker, sat alone on the rooftop bar. His empire stretched from Seoul to Chicago, yet boredom had followed him across oceans. Through the glass roof he could see the ballroom below, waiters moving with precision, dresses swirling like jewels. The rhythm calmed him until a single movement broke the pattern, a maid carrying a heavy tray, visibly pregnant, shoulders strained, moving faster than she safely could. He frowned. Efficiency under pressure, he thought. She intrigued him. By noon, the ballroom buzzed with executives from Texas, investors from Illinois, and gossip about the hotel's upcoming merger. No one noticed Lena's trembling hands as she balanced 10 full flutes of champagne. She was nearly at the head table when the head waiter bumped her elbow. Glass crashed to the floor. Liquid splashed onto designer shoes. Conversation stopped. Todd Vance, the hotel manager, red-faced, self-important, famous for cruelty, saw opportunity. Unbelievable! Do you see what I deal with? He turned the entire crowd into his jury. Clean it up now! Lena crouched, pregnant belly pressing against her knees, gathering shards as whispers rippled. Blood welled where a sliver cut her palm. On the mezzanine, Ji-hoon's gaze locked onto the scene, broken glass. A pregnant woman kneeling, a man barking orders loud enough to shake the marble. He hated chaos, hated men who mistook cruelty for control. His bodyguards waited for a signal. None came. Ji-hoon studied the maid's face, the defiance behind her humiliation, and something unfamiliar clenched in his chest. Her eyes, he thought. She still has fight left in them. He looked away, then looked back twice. Vance kept shouting, "You're finished here, Lena. I'm not paying liability for your personal decisions." Laughter echoed from nearby guests. The last piece of glass slipped from her shaking hand. "I need this job," she whispered. "Please, just until maternity leave." "Get out." Vance snapped his fingers. 2 guards moved toward her. As they dragged her toward the exit, Ji-hoon descended silently. The crowd parted instinctively. Rumors of his face traveled faster than his name. Lena looked up as he passed, dark suit, dragon tattoo gleaming under chandelier light, expression unreadable. Their eyes met for half a heartbeat. He didn't speak, only his jaw tightened. For that moment, the world tilted for both of them. Back on the mezzanine, Ji-hoon signaled his aide. "Get me everything on this hotel, the ownership chain, the debts, the manager's name." "What about the maid, sir?" He hesitated, watching the service door close behind her. "Start with her." The aide blinked. "Why?" Ji-hoon's tone turned to ice. "Because someone just taught my city to kneel, and I need to know her story before I make the rest of them." If you've ever watched someone humiliate a person who couldn't fight back, don't scroll past. Let this story remind you what real justice looks like. The silence that followed the shattering glass was louder than the crash itself. Every eye in the ballroom, executives from Texas, investors from Illinois, socialites draped in diamonds, was fixed on Lena. The champagne stain on the marble looked like a wound. Todd Vance descended upon her, his face a mask of performative rage. "Look at this. This is what I'm dealing with." Do you have any idea how much this floor costs to polish? Lena's hands trembled as she reached for a napkin. I'm so sorry, Mr. Vance. I was bumped. I'll clean it up right away. Her voice was low, desperate to de-escalate. Clean it up? Vance's laugh was a sharp, ugly sound. You'll do more than that. You'll pay for this out of your pathetic wages. In fact, consider this your final bill. He turned to the crowd playing to his audience. This is what happens when you let just anyone off the street work in a place like this. The whispers started, sharp and cruel. So careless. She looks exhausted. Probably can't handle the pressure. Each word was a small cut. Lena's professional mask crumbled. Please, Mr. Vance, it was an accident. I need this job. You needed this job, he corrected her, his voice dripping with venom. Past tense. I run a 5-star establishment, not a charity for personal decisions. He gestured vaguely toward her stomach, a dismissive, dehumanizing gesture that made the room titter. Lena felt the blood drain from her face. This wasn't about the spilled champagne. This was about her, about the inconvenience of her existence. I can work, she insisted, her voice cracking. I'm strong. I just need to make it to maternity leave. Please, for my baby. The mention of the baby seemed to enrage Vance even more. Your baby is not my problem. Your instability is a liability. You're fired, effective immediately. He snapped his fingers at 2 burly security guards who had appeared at his side. Escort her out, and make sure she doesn't take so much as a spare napkin. A sob escaped Lena's lips, raw and broken. No, please, you can't. One of the guards took her arm. His grip was firm, impersonal. The fight left her in a rush. What was the point? She was a spectacle now, the main event of the afternoon. With her head held low, trying to hide her tear-streaked face, she let them lead her away. The whispers followed her like a pack of wolves. The walk through the opulent lobby was a mile long. The marble floors, which she had polished to a mirror, shine that morning, now felt like a path of judgment. The grand piano music seemed to mock her. She was a ghost being exorcised from the machine. As she was pushed toward the service exit, the main elevator doors slid open with a soft ding. Kwon Ji-hoon stepped out. He was even more striking up close. Tall, impossibly still, dressed in a dark suit that seemed to absorb the light. His eyes, cold and analytical, bypassed the guards and landed directly on her. For a fraction of a second, the world stopped. He saw the tear tracks on her cheeks, the shame in her downcast eyes, the way her hand instinctively protected her stomach. He didn't move. He didn't speak. But something in his stillness shifted. The boredom in his gaze was replaced by a flicker of something sharp and dangerous. It was the look of a collector spotting a rare, damaged masterpiece being thrown in the trash. Lena felt his gaze on her like a physical touch. She felt seen. And in that moment, it was worse than being invisible. The guards pushed her forward, breaking the spell. She stumbled out into the hot, humid Atlanta air, the heavy door swinging shut behind her, sealing her off from the only world she had. Ji-hoon watched her go until the door closed. Then, he turned his gaze back to the ballroom entrance. Todd Vance was now holding court, loudly explaining to a group of guests how he'd just handled a personnel issue. Ji-hoon's aide, a man who had been with him for a decade, stepped forward. "Sir, the merger meeting is in 5 minutes." Ji-hoon didn't look at him. His eyes were fixed on the spot where Lena had been kneeling. The faint stain of the spilled champagne was still visible on the pristine marble. "Cancel the meeting," he said, his voice quiet but absolute. The aide blinked. "Sir?" "Get me the full acquisition file for the Grand Regency Hotel," Ji-hoon continued, his gaze now sweeping the room, dismissing everyone in it as irrelevant. "And get me the personal file on the maid. Her name is Lena Hayes. I want to know every debt she has, every bill she's ever worried about. I want to know the name of the hospital where she plans to have her baby." The aide understood immediately. This was no longer about business. "What are you going to do, sir?" he asked, his voice a low murmur. Ji-hoon finally turned his head, and the look in his eyes was terrifyingly calm. It was the look of a king who had just watched someone desecrate a holy site. "Someone in my city just decided a woman's dignity is worth less than a clean floor," he said. "I'm going to buy the building, and then I'm going to burn it to the ground to teach them the difference." He walked away from the ballroom, leaving a stunned silence in his wake. If you've ever been fired from a job you desperately needed, or watched someone be humiliated for a simple mistake, you know this pain. Hit the like button to stand with Lena. Your support fuels her fight for justice. Atlanta's heat clung to the streets like a warning as Kwon Ji-hoon's convoy slipped away from the Grand Regency. Inside the back of the black sedan, the air was cool, silent, and humming with encrypted signals and distant servers. His tablet vibrated once. A secure file appeared on the screen. "Grand Regency ownership structure, sir," his aide Min said from the front seat. "You have consolidated reports from our teams in Texas, Illinois, and North Carolina. And the Maid." Ji-hoon's gaze flicked down. "Subject, Lena Adwoa Hayes, age 26. Origin, Accra, Ghana, Atlanta, Georgia. Employment, housekeeping, banquet support, Grand Regency Atlanta status, terminated publicly by manager Todd Vance." He scrolled. "Medical debt from a complicated ER visit in Dallas, Texas. 2 years prior, $38,220. Rent arrears notice from a low-income complex in South Atlanta. Unpaid ultrasound invoice. 0 savings." Beneath the numbers sat a single line from Min. "No record of disciplinary issues. Employee reviews. Reliable. Overworks herself. Takes extra shifts to cover others." The image from the ballroom flashed in his mind. Lena kneeling, one hand instinctively on her belly, the other bleeding, a man screaming over broken glass. "This is what he fired her over?" he asked quietly. 3 spilled glasses, sir," Min replied. "She has no prior incidents on record." Ji-hoon's jaw flexed once. "And the hotel?" Min brought up a new file. "Grand Regency Holding Group, LLC primary owner, Wallace Kent Hospitality, Chicago, Illinois. Debt load, heavy. Refinancing negotiations underway. Vulnerabilities, one hostile buyout away from collapse." A slow, humorless smile touched Ji-hoon's mouth. "Good, I like cheap lessons." He switched to another window, security footage from the ballroom already pulled by his tech team. The angle was high, grainy, distant. But the essentials were unmistakable. Lena balancing the tray, the headwaiter bumping her, the stumble, the crash. Todd Vance's performance. Ji-hoon played it again, this time watching the guests. No one stepped in, no one spoke for her. They all watched her cry like she was part of the entertainment. "Rewind," he ordered. "Stop when she looks up." The footage froze on the moment Lena's eyes met his as she was escorted past the elevator. Even through pixels and poor resolution, her expression cut through him, shock, humiliation, and something else, a stubbornness that refused to fully bow. Min cleared his throat softly. "Sir, this is a housekeeping maid. You're talking about a full-scale acquisition over one human resources incident." Ji-hoon didn't look up. "This isn't HR. This is order." He tapped the tablet, zooming in on Lena's face. "In my cities," he said, voice growing colder, "no one teaches pregnant women their lives are disposable, not without paying a price that makes the lesson unforgettable." The sedan pulled into an underground garage beneath a nondescript office tower in Charlotte, North Carolina, one of Ji-hoon's quieter bases of operation. He stepped into his private office, lights flickering on automatically. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the banking district. Inside, the only color came from the soft glow of multiple monitors. He didn't sit. He dialed. "Colin," he said when his chief financial officer answered, "I'm sending you a file. Wallace Kent Hospitality. I want the Grand Regency out of their hands." "Sir, that's a major asset. They'll resist." "They're over-leveraged," Ji-hoon cut in. "We'll make them an offer they can't refuse and a threat they can't afford to test. I want full control papers in my hands by midnight." "That's less than 12 hours. "That's more than they deserve." He ended the call before Colin could argue. Next call, security. "Put a watch on Lena Hayes," he ordered. "Discreet. Cameras, tail, everything. No contact yet." "Do you perceive a threat against her, boss?" "Yes." His tone was flat. "The world." An hour later, Colin appeared on the big screen, looking more exhausted than usual. Behind him, a flurry of analysts and lawyers shuffled papers and snapped at each other. "We've gone through Wallace Kent's books," Colin said. "You were right. They're exposed. One bad quarter from losing their lenders. You hit them now, they'll fold. But? It's not a clean hotel, Ji-hoon." Colin hesitated. "Labor violations, wage theft, HR complaints buried, predatory contracts. Firing pregnant women is not the worst thing they've done." A cold smile tugged at Ji-hoon's lips. "Then we're not buying a hotel." "We're not?" "We're buying a confession." He turned back to Lena's file on screen. Single. No partner listed. Emergency contact. A younger sister in Houston, Texas, working 2 jobs. Their parents still in Ghana. "Tell me something," he said. "If Lena loses this job, how long before she's evicted?" Colin checked his notes. 30 days, maybe less. Her landlord's already filed papers once. Ji-hoon exhaled slowly through his nose. "So one man's ego just put her and her unborn child on a timer." Min spoke up from the corner. "Most people would say that's not our concern, boss." Ji-hoon's eyes turned to ice. "Most people don't get to decide who lives under my protection. I do." He leaned on the edge of his desk, the dragon and wave tattoo on his neck flexing as he clenched his jaw. "Min," he said, "what do you think happens when a place like the Grand Regency publicly fires a pregnant African immigrant in front of clients from half the country?" Min swallowed. "They all think it's acceptable." "Exactly." Ji-hoon's voice stayed calm, but his eyes burned. "Standards trickle down. If I allow that kind of contempt on a floor I walk on, what happens in corners I never see." He let the question hang in the air. When a man with this much power decides one woman's humiliation is his business, is that protection or a new kind of control? Would you trust him or fear what he might want in return? "Buy me the hotel," Ji-hoon repeated quietly. "And when I'm done with it, every manager in this city will think twice before making a show of breaking a woman who's already carrying too much." Min nodded. "Understood." By late afternoon, calls were flying between Atlanta, Chicago, and Charlotte. Wallace Kent's executives blustered and stalled, but debt was a language Ji-hoon spoke more fluently than any of them. Wire transfers moved. Old favors were called in. Friendly banks suddenly turned cold to Wallace Kent's renewal proposals. By 8 p.m., their CEO was on a secure line, his voice tight. "Mr. Kwan, this is unexpected. The Grand Regency is one of our flagship properties." "It was," Ji-hoon corrected him. "Now it's a liability. You know it. I know it. By midnight, you'll be grateful I took it off your hands instead of letting your lenders devour you." "That's seriously. Who told you about—" "The terms are on the screen," Ji-hoon cut in. "You have 3 hours. After that, I call your competitors in Illinois and let them decide what your carcass is worth." The CEO cursed under his breath. "Why this hotel? Why so fast?" Ji-hoon's gaze drifted past the screen, back to the paused frame of Lena's firing on his tablet. "Let's just say," he murmured, "your management made a mess on my floor. I don't like mess." He ended the call. At 9:47 p.m., the deal was done. Wallace Kent signed under pressure so ferocious their lawyers wanted it off the books before anyone could accuse them of worse. Ji-hoon's lawyers didn't care if it looked ugly. They specialized in ugly. In his Charlotte office, Min brought in a slim folder. "It's yours," he said simply. "Title, assets, staff contracts, effective immediately." Ji-hoon didn't open it. Instead, he walked to the window. The reflected skyline sprawled behind his glass, a kingdom of light balanced on greed and secrets. "Book me on the next flight back to Atlanta," he said. "That won't give you much time, boss," Min cautioned. "It'll be close to midnight when you land." "That's the point." His reflection smiled, a thin, dangerous curve. "I made a promise. Lena lost her job in seconds. He just spent millions to buy the building that threw her away. If you're still watching, don't ghost her now. Tap subscribe so stories like hers don't vanish in the algorithm. The contract signing happened in a sterile, overpriced office suite in Miami, Florida, brokered remotely while Ji-hoon was airborne. The transfer of the Grand Regency was less a merger and more a hostile seizure disguised as a merger. At 11:50 p.m., the final electronic signature flashed green. Ji-hoon leaned back in his private jet seat, looking at Min. "It's done. The hotel belongs to me." "The rival group is scrambling, boss. They never expected a move this aggressive." "They expected a fight over territory," Ji-hoon corrected, pulling on his dark overcoat. "They didn't expect me to take the entire foundation." He stood up, tossing the tablet onto the seat. "We have a manager to fire." They landed in Atlanta just after 1 a.m. The city was silent, slick with the rain that had plagued Lena days before. Ji-hoon's security detail, 6 men moving like shadows, escorted him through the empty service entrance of the Grand Regency. The lobby was dark, the grand chandeliers dimmed to their nighttime level. It looked beautiful, indifferent, and suddenly fragile. Todd Vance was not supposed to be there. He was supposed to be home, celebrating the end of his shift. But he had been summoned by a panicked phone call from the CEO to secure paperwork. He was alone in the executive office, nervously pacing, when the door clicked open. No knock. Todd froze, his mouth half open. Vance recognized the men first. They moved with the silent authority of predators. Then he saw the man behind them, Kwon Ji-hoon, the rumored kingmaker. "Who the hell are you? This is private property." Vance tried to muster indignation, but the tremor in his voice betrayed him. Ji-hoon walked slowly to the desk, his expensive leather shoes silent on the marble floor. He didn't sit. He leaned in, placing the freshly signed transfer documents squarely on top of Vance's meticulously organized papers. "It was," Ji-hoon corrected him, his voice dangerously low. "Now, it is mine. You are fired." Todd Vance laughed, a nervous, pathetic sound. "Fired? I'm the general manager. You can't just—" "I just did." Ji-hoon straightened up, pulling a small silver object from his pocket. A key card, presumably the master key to the hotel. He tossed it onto the desk. It landed near Vance's trembling hand. "Get out of my hotel by dawn. Take only what you can carry." Vance's bravado shattered. He scrambled for the papers, trying to clutch at the remnants of his authority. "Wait, Mr. Moretti, Kwon, whatever. I can explain. It was a mistake. She was just staff. She was clumsy." Ji-hoon took one step forward, and Vance flinched back violently, knocking his expensive leather chair over. "Clumsy," Ji-hoon repeated, his voice devoid of emotion. "You humiliated a woman who was carrying a life. You chose your ego over her safety. You made the mistake of showing contempt in my city." He looked at Franco, who stood by the door. "Franco, the financial terms of his employment agreement. Liquidate all assets tied to his name. I want him penniless. And I want every associate who laughed when he fired her to know exactly why he's ruined." Vance dropped to his knees, grabbing the edge of the desk. "Please, Mr. Kwon, I have a family, my wife, my mortgage in Florida. I'll grovel. I'll do anything." Ji-hoon looked down at the groveling manager as if he were an insect. "You already had everything you needed. You chose cruelty." He turned his back on Vance, walking toward the door. He didn't need to watch the end. He knew Franco would handle the details cleanly. "Leave this building by 5 a.m., Ji-hoon instructed his team member at the door. "If he's still here, he loses the right to a clean exit." Ji-hoon didn't look back at the man he'd just destroyed. He walked out, the silence of the deserted lobby swallowing the faint sounds of panic and pleading from the executive offices behind him. Ji-hoon stepped into the waiting SUV at 1:30 a.m. He looked composed, but the energy radiating off him was coiled steel. "Where to, boss?" "Lena Hayes' address. Now." Min looked up, surprised. "Sir, it's the middle of the night. She's likely asleep." "She's not sleeping," Ji-hoon stated, already pulling out his phone. She's worried about bills and bruised ribs. She needs to know the noise has stopped. He dialed Lena's number, the personal cell he'd had tracked, not the work number. It rang once. Hello? Lena's voice was husky, cautious. She had been staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep since the firing. Lena? Mr. Kim, what is it? Is everything all right? Everything is handled. You are safe. A pause. She must have heard the background noise, the idling engines, the security detail. What did you do? She whispered, recognizing the dangerous tone in his voice. I eliminated the problem, he corrected her, and then I acquired the asset. Asset? What are you talking about? Ji-hoon looked out the window at the sleeping city of Atlanta. The Grand Regency Hotel now belongs to me, and you, Lena Hayes, are no longer fired. The line went silent on her end. What are you talking about? She finally managed. By dawn, Ji-hoon said, his voice dropping to a low, possessive register. This hotel will have a new owner, and you will have a new job, Lena. Come to the lobby at 6 a.m. You will not be cleaning it. He hung up, silencing the connection before she could respond. He knew she'd be confused, scared, and intrigued. He had drawn his line in the sand. Tonight, he paid the price for crossing it. Tomorrow, she would see what that protection cost. Lena woke before her alarm, not to the usual dull dread, but to a restless, vibrating energy. She hadn't slept well, replaying the firing, the humiliation in front of the wealthy guests, and the terrifying calm in Ji-hoon's eyes as he watched Vance fall apart. Her phone rang at 6 a.m. sharp, the moment the sun began to lighten the smog over the city. Unknown number. She almost ignored it. In her world, 6 a.m. calls meant bad news, usually from the hospital billing department in Texas, reminding her about interest rates. She answered on the third ring, wrapping the phone tight against her ear. Hello? It's Ji-hoon. His voice was crisp, fully awake, carrying the authority of someone who commanded the morning. Lena sat up, gripping the phone tight. Mr. Kim, is everything all right? Did something happen at the hotel? The hotel is under new management. I don't understand. Are you taking over the debt? No, I bought the building. You're not an employee anymore. You're the general manager. Silence hung on the line, so thick Lena could barely breathe. She thought she must have misunderstood that the shock of the firing had finally made her delusional. I'm sorry, she managed. I think you have the wrong number, sir. I was fired yesterday. You were mismanaged, Ji-hoon corrected gently. That situation is rectified. Get dressed. The car will be outside your building in 20 minutes. We need to finalize your transition. Mr. Kim, I'm not qualified to manage a hotel. I didn't hire you for your qualifications. I hired you for your integrity and for the fact that you won't tolerate disrespect in your domain. Wear something professional, nothing gray. He hung up. Lena stared at the phone. He didn't wait for her to agree. He just decided. 20 minutes later, she was in the back of a silent black SUV, holding a single garment bag. A professional black suit, perfectly tailored, delivered by Ji-hoon's security team. The drive to the hotel was surreal. The sun was just cresting the horizon, turning the glass towers of Atlanta gold. When they arrived, the main entrance was deserted, except for Ji-hoon standing at the revolving door. He wasn't in a suit. He wore dark designer casual wear, looking like a CEO taking a casual morning stroll, not a crime boss who had just executed a hostile takeover. He escorted her past the security guard, who bowed deeply, and past the receptionist, who froze mid-sentence. They rode the main executive elevator directly to the top floor, the general manager's suite. The space was the same executive office Vance had used, but it looked different now, cleaner, more ordered. Ji-hoon led her to the main desk. On the polished mahogany surface sat a single, heavy, engraved brass nameplate. L. Hayes, General Manager. Beside it was a thick contract packet. Your new terms, Ji-hoon said, his voice low. Salary triple your old rate, full executive health and maternity coverage effective immediately, a signing bonus large enough to clear every medical bill you currently owe. Lena stared at the papers. She felt faint. The reality of the $32,000 debt being wiped clean, gone, erased by a man she met 3 days ago, was staggering. "Mr. Kim, I can't accept this. This is too much." He walked around the desk, stopping right in front of her, the space between them charged. He took the nameplate and placed it gently on her chest. "You earned this," he stated. "You were humiliated because you were vulnerable. That ends now. You are not just protected, Lena. You are appointed." "Why?" she whispered, the question finally escaping her. "Why risk all this? You own half the city. Why care about one server who spilled champagne?" Ji-hoon reached out, his fingers gently touching the skin near her temple, where the stress usually showed. "When you walked past me in the lobby yesterday, I saw you shrinking, trying to make yourself small. I've spent my life making myself big, untouchable, so the world couldn't hurt me." He paused, his usual control faltering slightly. "Seeing you try to survive in that size made me realize how empty my power is if I can't use it to stop that kind of cruelty." He stepped back, suddenly formal, reverting to his protective shell. "I saw you being broken. I don't tolerate that around what belongs to me." "I'm not yours to own," she managed, pride still flickering weakly. "No," he agreed, his voice dropping to a near-silent murmur. "You're not property. You're the exception. You're the only person who has ever made me furious enough to change the balance of power just to keep them safe." He gestured around the vast, luxurious office. "This is your office now, Lena. The entire floor answers to you. And I need you to understand one thing clearly." He met her eyes, and the intensity was breathtaking. "The man who fired you is already gone. The threat is over. But if anyone ever makes you feel small again, you tell me. And I promise you, they will learn that the cost of disrespecting my property is ruin." Lena felt the weight of his promise, a promise backed by violence and immense resources. It was terrifying. It was intoxicating. She looked at the contract, a whole new life, bought and paid for in one night of corporate destruction. "I accept," she whispered. Ji-hoon closed the distance between them, and for the first time the kiss wasn't urgent or demanding or born from danger. It was slow, careful, a promise of safety. His hands found her waist, careful not to pressure her stomach, holding her as if she were the most fragile, valuable thing he owned. "Thank you," she breathed against his lips. "Don't thank me for keeping you safe," he murmured. "Just stay." The consequences for Todd Vance were swift and public, in a way that cemented Ji-hoon's authority in the Atlanta business circles he now controlled. Vance was not arrested. That would bring police scrutiny. Instead, a carefully orchestrated chain reaction began. Ji-hoon's financial analysts leaked evidence of Vance's shady dealings, the kickbacks from vendors, the under-the-table bribes, the HR violations that had been ignored because Vance was connected. By late afternoon, Vance was stripped of his position and his reputation. His bank accounts were frozen pending investigation into his dubious wealth. His wife, seeing the fall coming, filed for divorce immediately, claiming emotional distress and fraud. Lena heard the news from Brittany, who was still in the kitchen, now reporting directly to the new acting management team hired by Ji-hoon's corporation. "He didn't just fire him, Lena. He vaporized him. Todd Vance is going to be begging for a job washing dishes in Savannah by next week." Lena looked at the pristine carpet in the GM suite, tracing the pattern with her toe. She hadn't even noticed the cleanup crew had finished. "He's terrifying," Lena admitted, picking up a pen and signing the first executive document, a memo approving overtime pay for the night cleaning crew. "He's just settling the score," Brittany corrected, a slight smile on her face. "You're going to be fine, Lena. He's making sure of it. He didn't just get her job back, he rebuilt her world overnight. If you believe in a boss who fights for his people, smash the subscribe button and join us for the next chapter." 6 months passed in a blur of acquisitions, contracts, and impossible training seminars. The transformation in Lena's life was total. The compression wrap was gone, the scars were faint, visible only when she stood in the perfect morning light. The Grand Regency Hotel in Atlanta was thriving. Ji-hoon quietly kept his ownership private, but Lena ran it with ruthless efficiency and a fierce dedication to treating staff fairly, a direct consequence of her own brutal firing. One rainy Tuesday, Lena was on a video call with Ji-hoon from his private office in New York. He was closing a major deal that would secure their financial future indefinitely. "She's negotiating better vendor rates than you are," Lena replied, sipping her perfect tea. "She just saved the company $40,000 this quarter alone." "Excellent. I expect nothing less from my wife." The word wife still settled warmly in her heart. They hadn't rushed the legal steps, but the commitment was absolute. "I heard something strange today," Lena admitted, leaning back in the plush leather chair. "I was checking vendor reports, and I saw a financial transfer tied to a former employee, Todd Vance." Ji-hoon paused his conversation with his lawyer. "Vance?" He spoke the name like a lingering bad taste. "He's working in a low-end hotel supply company in Louisiana," Lena continued. "The owner told me Vance tried to bring him a client list, bragging about his time at the Regency. He's broke. His wife divorced him the week after you took over." Ji-hoon didn't smile. His expression was one of pure, satisfied finality. "He tried to break you over a spilled drink. He made himself an enemy of someone connected to me. That is a costly mistake." "Did you do that to him?" "I ensured the market reacted appropriately to his incompetence. He chose instability when he chose cruelty." The true victory wasn't Vance's ruin. It was the life they built in the shadow of that danger. 3 months after the takeover, the adoption of Zara, Lena's niece, whom she was raising, was finalized. Ji-hoon ensured the process was instantaneous and flawless. Zara now lived in the penthouse, and the sterile environment was utterly transformed by her presence. One evening, they stood watching Zara sleep in the luxurious nursery Ji-hoon insisted they build. The room was filled with brightly colored toys and art supplies. "She's asleep," Lena whispered, leaning against his shoulder. "She finally has peace," Ji-hoon murmured, his voice unusually soft. "Peace she never had in that small apartment." "You gave her that, Jae-hyun." He turned, pulling her close. "No, you gave her that. You fought every day for her. I just removed the obstacles." He looked at the baby monitor, then at Lena. "I never thought I'd have a family. I thought my world meant only loneliness and war." "Now you have us," Lena said, reaching up to touch the outline of the phoenix tattoo over his heart. "Two women who think you're the best man in the city." 6 months after the attack, they stood on the renovated penthouse terrace, overlooking the entirety of Manhattan, Ji-hoon's original base of power. Lena wore one of his expensive silk shirts, her hair down, free from the constraints of the Maid uniform and the bun. "Are you happy?" he asked, the question mirroring the one she'd asked him weeks ago. "I'm alive," she smiled, the genuine smile that had once captivated him. "And I'm living, not just surviving. And I'm not afraid to walk the streets anymore, even the dark ones." "Good," he said. "Because you need to understand this. I'm investing heavily in the Atlanta properties. I'm making the hotel a legitimate, massive hospitality chain." He turned her to face him fully, his expression intense but free of threat. "I can burn cities down for you. I can acquire empires. But the greatest thing I ever did was stop letting you live in a world that was too small for your strength." He kissed her forehead. "You're my peace, Lena, and I'll destroy anything that tries to take that peace away." Controversy alert. Is this kind of obsessive protection healthy or completely controlling? Drop your opinion in the comments below. We read every response. If this story gave you hope that someone out there sees your true worth, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. Don't let your story go unseen. Join the family.